gentlemen, welcome to the Talkie Taka podcast. And we have RK, Radha, and Ashwin on the pod today. How are you guys? We have lots of talkie points to talk about. I'm going to kick us off today. For me, the talkie point is Inter and Milan both winning and potentially setting up a Milan derby in the Champions League semi-final, giving us vibes of being back in the mid 2000s. I don't know about you guys. Maybe you have something positive to talk about from your own football clubs rather than clinging on to European points. Let's go with Radhaji.
Not extremely positive, but I guess we were so bad when we started off that game against Arsenal, getting our ass handed to us. Somehow clawed our way back. The crowd was dead. Everybody was resigned to the 2-0 loss. And then there was a flashpoint between Trent and Xhaka, and suddenly Trent learned how to defend aggressively, and the crowd was right on top for the next 60 minutes. And we played a really good football match, one of the best football matches that we've played for 60 minutes after that. So I guess that's my talking moment. But yeah, 2-2 at Anfield, not not the best, but I think that keeps us right on target for that eighth place finish that we want.
Yeah, you would have been scared, right? Because you were probably going to be ninth with the 2-0. You're like, okay, come on, 1 point, at least 1 point, but not win. Otherwise, Conference League beckoned.
Yeah, eighth is the sweet spot. I don't want to go below the likes of Brentford. That's a little too hard to swallow. But yeah, eighth is a nice sweet spot.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me that Brentford and Fulham are also ahead of Chelsea as we speak. Anyway, RK, good to see you after a long time. How's it been? What's your talkie point?
Long time, guys. Swag, is there something like a Saint Tottenham Day where if Fulham finish above Chelsea, but
I
before
don't
we come
think
to the
it's happened in a long while, but yeah, why not? Go for it. This is the season of firsts for us.
yeah, the talkie moment for me would be Ericsson coming back after 3 months in a week where in a few weeks where we have lost a lot of important players. The most recent game, Martinez and Varane, going out. Garnacho is out. Shaw and Rashford are also out. So it's been a bleak time injury wise, but seeing Ericsson back on the pitch, coming into a standing ovation was a great moment.
Yeah, at least someone's back fit and not injured. I think Ashwin has a slightly different take on this week's events, though.
Yeah, obviously it's not a positive event with Martinez going off injured and stretchered off rather. But I think I, what I really liked is his Argentine compatriots literally carrying him off the field. Now that could be looked at as a sign of great sportsmanship, or it could be looked at as them trying to, get United down to 10 man as soon as possible. But I think it was a great image and just one of those things that you like to see on the pitch.
Yeah, I think it's divided Twitter as well a bit about whether it's sportsmanship or gamesmanship, but undoubtedly a key blow to United with the final few games of the season and the run-in. I think we'll touch base on that in more detail, but let's get started. And I think the Xhaka point brings us to the Liverpool Arsenal game and key game in the title run. Probably more important for the title as compared to Liverpool's hopes of avoiding the Conference League. But at one point, it looked like Liverpool were dead and buried at Anfield, which is still a bit unnerving and surprising to see, regardless of how the season has been. But that comeback was pretty crazy, and the second half made the game pretty interesting and fun to watch as a neutral.
Yeah, it was a superb second half, I have to say. Like the last 60 minutes, even the last 15 minutes of the first half and the entire second half was just great to watch. It was so intense, lot of energy. I don't think Arsenal contributed too much to well, from the 40th minute onwards, I don't think they contributed too much to the game, though they had a chance to win it at the end. And given how they've actually scored some really cool late winners lately, they might kick themselves for that. It could be a turning point in the league season as well for them. It's not like last episode when we were talking about the game. I mentioned that I won't be surprised if we, as in, it will definitely not surprise me if we win, and it might surprise me a bit if Arsenal win. But I don't think Arsenal would have at after 30 minutes felt like it would have been anything short of an upset if they had won. So it would have been a proper deserved victory. So right at the end, to get that chance through on goal with a poor pass from Martinelli, who had a pretty good first half. And Saka couldn't get on the ball, and Allison ended up clearing. I think that was a real key moment in the game for Arsenal season. It could end up becoming a very, very close run of games. Now they have four tough games coming up, and obviously playing City as well, so they could be level on points with City's game in hand. So yeah, it's getting really tight, and like I had mentioned to you guys off the record, I think I have now come back to a Man City 60, Arsenal 40 kind of situation. While I was all the way up for Arsenal till this weekend. From a Liverpool point of view, I think nothing really. We're just winding down the season. Nothing much to talk about. I don't think any major improvements for the team. Konate continues to impress. He's good. That midfield is still, it has a lot to be, lots of correction to be done there. Salah missing another penalty. That's a big surprise. I think he's been a really strong penalty taker for us and for Egypt for the last many years. And considering that he has uh, probably not had his best season in terms of goal return, although he's got 22 in all competitions. I think he would really be kicking himself for missing that penalty. And I won't be surprised if somebody else takes the penalties from the next game onwards as well, just to take some pressure off him. No real major things to talk about from a Liverpool point of view. Just get to the end of the season and then see what we can do.
Yeah, I think we spoke about this last week as well. Is that it's not an easy place to go to for any team, let alone Arsenal. They started so well when they were 2-0 up. I was like, wow, this Arsenal team really wants the title, and they're just gonna blow Liverpool away and avenge the 7-0 Man United loss. I kid, but it is they started so well, and they just let Liverpool into the game. The Salah penalty miss was I was a bit surprised with Salah missing penalty. I think is it back to back games because he also missed a penalty against Bournemouth, right? So it's just it's I would have never thought of Salah missing so many penalties because he usually places it so well in the bottom corner or like at least in the corner for and the keeper is unable to save it. I think he was trying to do that here as well, and then he ended up just missing the whole goal. Um, I think the Jata moment, as Radha mentioned earlier, was something that played a something that had a big. I think it was a big pivotal moment as well in terms of it getting the Liverpool crowd all riled up and almost like motivating the Liverpool players as well. I think it was one of the best games of the season, if not the best game of the season. It had everything. It had comeback. It had manager tussles. It had a penalty miss. And for it to come at such an important point of the season, also just goes to show how exciting this league is.
Yeah, for me, I think that Zaka moment is a bit overrated. Like I didn't see the match live, but I saw it on one of the weekdays. Uh, the goal came right after that moment happened, so I would rather believe that the like the crowd getting revved up, the atmosphere, Liverpool becoming a very fierce place again to play football at. All that came from the first goal itself, which was I think the same play right after the foul happened, the first goal happened. It was not like Anfield got a time to really rev up and start shouting, and that created the goal. So for me, and what is a player supposed to do when someone rams into him? I don't like you see that hundreds of times in a lot of home games, and without really people talking about it. So I mean, for me, I think it was a bit overrated, but like suffice to say that Liverpool really changed the game around from that moment.
Yeah, I don't agree that it wasn't that it was a wasn't a turning point, because the next moment actually is what caused the entire crowd to come up. It wasn't the goal. Immediately after the Xhaka moment, it was Gabriel Martinelli running at Trent Alexander-Arnold, and he had gotten past him quite easily till then in the entire game. And Trent was clearly fuming after he got a push from Xhaka, but yeah, it's not something that you don't see in games. It's not something that was out of the ordinary. The only thing that I can say that Arsenal, perhaps, if they were Man City, for example, what they could have done better is, this is Xhaka. We know what he does. We know the kind of history that he has. And he rounded up to Trent Alexander-Arnold, got his head in front of his and all of that. And you could see Gabriel Jesus and everybody else just coming and dragging him away. In fact, Allison was also coming to drag Xhaka away because everybody knew Xhaka had that aura about him. If I was Liverpool, I would just be like, let them go, let them go. That's the only, because we played Arsenal, I think it was last season, maybe the season before last, where again the game was going into a nothingness for us. And Arteta just suddenly got pissed off for no reason. This was, I think, the season where they were recording the documentary as well. So Arteta got suddenly pissed off, and then out of nowhere, he just created the game into something, and the atmosphere was then hostile. So yeah, immediately after that moment, there was Gabriel Martinelli running at Trent, and Trent was just properly aggressive, like a typical English right back, you would call it. Well, he never really does that too often. And he won the tackle, and he got the crowd to rev up with his hands up and everything. I think from there onwards, I think we got, of course, lucky that we scored quite soon after that. That definitely helped. If we had gone into halftime still 2-0 down, then probably that would have also fizzled away. But we then got that momentum with the goal. Then we started off the second half really well. I think that's great that we managed to continue that momentum for 60 minutes. That's a small positive. Another big positive was Thiago's back. I think the level difference between him and our other midfielders is just too stark. And considering he's 31, 32 right now, it's a sad place for us to be, that we're talking about how he's so far ahead as the best midfielder that we have. But yeah, a couple of small positive signs for us, but nothing great, nothing to talk about, nothing to write home about.
Yeah, I'm more on RK side about the Zaka incident because I think it's more a case of his not old, his historical reputation preceding and creating more of a story than there actually was. So I take a point about the Martinelli part of it, but yeah, I think the Zaka bit was overhyped and more for the memes, more for the lols rather than the actual incident. But yeah, that's how it rolled. Ashwin, you had something about Ramsdale.
Yeah, I mean, it's I know the game ended 2-2, but Ramsdale made some cracking saves as well. I think Liverpool could have easily, uh, got the 3 points, and it was definitely a point well earned for Arsenal. I think losing would have been a disaster, because like City, if they win against Arsenal, can then go ahead of them, right? So that point is definitely uh, uh, well earned. I think Ramsdale is definitely an upgrade over Leno as well for them. He has made some really good saves and match-winning saves through the season. And if you look at all the teams that have won the title over the past many years, they've had a really good keeper. So shout out to Ramsdale for doing what he does.
Just imagine if they'd taken off Leno and rather than going for Leno, stayed with Martinez. Imagine how life could have turned out for them.
Yeah, I think I was just awestruck by Ramsdale's performance, and over the last couple of years, he's been a really solid performer for Arsenal. I still remember this one game. I think it was because of the documentary that I remember this. It's a game that Arsenal won. I think they were leading 3-0, and then at the last 85th or 86th minute, they conceded a goal, and they ended up winning 3-1 or 2-1 or something like that. And then they go into the dressing room, and Ramsdale looks like he's just lost the Champions League final. Like he, everybody is off celebrating, like high-fiving and everything. Ramsdale just sitting in a corner, kicking his locker room, and just absolutely distraught. that mentality is also something that he was not really a heralded guy when he signed for Arsenal. I was one of the guys who was actually saying, you have two solid keepers in your books. Why are you wasting so much money trying to go find Ramsdale, who's only, played in relegation scraps till then in his career. So I actually really ridiculed that and a lot of other signings that they made at the same time. But yeah, he's been a solid performer for Arsenal, and I don't think there's any doubt that he's better than Leno. And I would actually say that it's time we start talking about him for the England spot as well. Pickford is not somebody who has inspired too much confidence, but he's had a long run at that number one position for England.
I'm just really happy that Radha has come around to my like probability percentage for Arsenal. I was always, holding out that City are, slightly more favorites all these weeks. And if you look at Arsenal's recent results, it's not that they have really dropped too many points. They had that 3 game sequence where they had 1 point. After that, they went on a 6-7 game winning run, if I remember, coming into this fixture. So it's not like Arsenal are performing badly. It's just that City tend to, rev up at this time of the season more often than not. If you look at this record of the last 5-6 seasons or the last 4 seasons, this is how they have always done it. And this was always, I think, bound to come down to the wire for me. But just one question on Trent. I think there was a tactical alteration in that match where Trent was playing in midfield. So my question for Radha, like, how did you see that coming about? It seemed like it wasn't working out at first, and then it revved into gear. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that was interesting. It's not the first time. He's actually done it before as well, where he plays on the right back when we have the ball. Sorry, he moves into midfield as we're carrying the ball, and then when they start defending and we have some time to reorganize, he comes back to right back. But the transition play is wide open right now. I don't think they've gotten anywhere near as prepared as they need to be for that kind of tactical change. So, for example, when we lost the ball just into the Arsenal half or maybe on the half line, they were immediately running forward, and Konate was essentially the right back and the right centre back at that time, and he had to keep running to the run. And if actually Arsenal had caught onto that faster and made the game wider and just got Martinelli to just stay wide the whole time, there was a huge gap between Konate and Van Dijk, and that's because Fabinho perhaps took some time to get into the centre back position to cover. So there was actually a moment where they hit that gap, and luckily, I don't know, Van Dijk was able to stay with the man, and it ended up becoming nothing, or it ended up becoming a shot that just went wide. But I don't think Van Dijk is the man anymore to manage two positions on his own. He once was. Like, you could leave him with two attackers, one attacker, one on one without any fear in your heart at all. I don't think he's that guy anymore. He can be got at. So if we're doing this tactic, we need to be much better at the transitional play. But yeah, from a possession point of view, I think it's an interesting one because Trent is not all about the crosses. I think he does have a bit of tempo generation, a bit of intelligent passing that he has in his game as well, and he plays some really cool one-twos. He did that with Henderson all through the game last, where Henderson almost played like a right winger. So some interesting things when it comes to offensively. Defensively, again, lots to improve there.
Yeah, you spoke about Van Dijk, and just that just reminded me about Jamie Carragher hitting another of his clickbait headlines and getting a lot of shit from United fans. I can't even imagine how someone can argue so strongly that that Van Dijk has been a better Premier League defender than Vidic. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
So I will say this though, RK, and maybe obviously the last 1 year has colored opinions on that. But for the 3 year, 4 year, five, I think it was his last season on Southampton to the first maybe 2 or 3 seasons in Liverpool, and that is a very small. Of course, when you compare legends, you obviously always have to take into account longevity, which is why John Terry, Vidic, Rio Ferdinand will always be the goats of the Premier League era. But that 3 year, 4 year period, Van Dijk was probably the best centre back that I'd ever seen. It was just a small period of time though, so perhaps he should not be getting that kind of adulation and discussion in the world. But for that period of time, and he was transformative for us. Like, he did make a huge difference for our scenario, and it ended up playing a strong part in us winning the Champions League and title as well. But yeah, longevity always. Like, for example, I always argue that Suarez had probably the best couple of seasons I'd ever seen in the Premier League. But at the same time, you can never compare him to an Henry. You can never compare him to a Shearer. So yeah, but small period of time, really great player.
Yeah, from one cyber war that happened to this cyber war that happened. I mean, it's four times this season Brighton have been given an apology by PGMOL saying that sorry, we got it wrong and we don't know what we're doing on the pitch or off the pitch. And I know we've mostly stayed away from talking about these refereeing controversies on this pod, but it's a bit weird that they can keep doing this and there's not much reproach. I don't know if there's a review planned at the end of the season, but it doesn't look good, right? For the league as well. It's not a good look for the Premier League. I think there was some posts on Twitter comparing the salaries of referees in the PL and other big leagues, and surprise, surprise, the PL refs are paid lesser significantly as compared to the other ones, which is where people were going, yeah, you need to pay them better, which is why they're not doing their work properly, etc., etc. Like, yeah, okay, you give Stuart Atwell some bonus, and then he'll give correct decision maybe, but yeah, it's not a good look, and particularly in a match which can potentially decide who's trying to go for a top four between Spurs and Brighton. It might have ended up being a Brighton win, and now it ended up being a Spurs win. So yeah, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, what a bunch of like this. It's so easy to just issue a note of apology, right? At that point in time, Brighton uh, deserved a penalty. They deserved a goal that was ruled out, and then it totally gave the initiative to Spurs as well. And then obviously there was altercation between the two managers. I think De Zerbi was not even getting involved, and he was sent off to the stand or something like that happened. Also, the standards of refereeing in this country is just appalling, I would say.
Yeah, but there's
It
there's an interesting thing there as well. You talk about De Zerbi, but apparently he was sent off because of his failure to control his troops, basically. So there are all these weird laws which we don't even know. So it's basically
there are
why
rules that
why
we
are
don't
your
even.
assistants fighting with their assistants? So you you get sent off. It's like class monitor being punished for the class's
I think
mistakes.
it's the one good thing about VAR is that it gives us the opportunity to look back at events. The one bad thing about VAR is that you have to, go by the rule book, and the rule book. I mean, I think before VAR things were a bit more subjective, right? So we used to, so if there was a if there was a if there was a hard tackle, right? You would argue that, oh, this guy is trying to uh, you know um, uh, not trying to injure the player, but the rule is very clear on if it's a hard tackle and the studs are up, you need to give a red card and those sort of things. There will always be a debate amongst opposing fans around depending on what side of the decision that you are in. But like in this instance, it was very clear that Brighton deserved a penalty, and like Brighton definitely got the short end of the stick. And it is very easy for the referees to come back after the game and say that, oh, we had the opportunity to look at an event in slow motion. We decided not to give a penalty, and and now we've realized that we made a mistake because there was, a lot of opposition from fans, and now we are doing is we are saying sorry. So it just does not make sense to me.
See, but another thing there is, okay, you can't change anything after the result of the game as well, but what they also need to do is probably clarify their operational guidelines on VAR, because I think the Australian league does it where you actually hear what the ref is saying, like in rugby, I
It
think
happens in rugby. It
like
happens
like
in
it happens
rugby
in
as well.
rugby. So
Yeah.
it makes things easier, right? If you can understand why the VAR guy is saying that I'm not taking a look at this, or I'm not allowed to take a look at this because of whatever rule it is, or I took a look at this and it doesn't make sense, at least you know then what their rationale is, and that rationale might well be wrong. In which case, as it has happened, Brighton get a drive in from the head of the PGMOL, and he comes in and apologizes to them and gets pelters and goes back home. But at least you then have a better understanding. Right now, it's completely nebulous. You have no idea.
Mm.
You just get a message saying, "Ah, okay, VAR didn't take a look at it. VAR took a look at it, but didn't think there was anything else." And then there is a review after the game, and then they say, "Yeah, okay, I think we probably got this wrong, so let's apologize." I think there needs to be better accountability there and a better understanding of what's supposed to happen and who's supposed to do what.
Yeah, I think what's really irritating for me is the lack of how you apply standards. So for me, the mind always keeps going back to these red card incidents where Hakim GH rightly didn't get a red card because when he tried to, I mean, hit the other player, it didn't, like, it went to the face, like from the shoulder, etc. Right? And then you have this incident where Casemiro was sent off because it seemed a perfectly legitimate tackle, where it just happened to go off the ball and then hit the shin of the other player, and he got sent off. And then a couple of weeks after that, I don't remember this game, but there was an exactly same incident, but probably even more severe, where it stopped at a yellow card and where checked it and it didn't give a red. So I mean, and there are tons of incidents like this. On the same note, you can apply it to penalties as well. You can apply it to handballs. The same standards are never applied, and I don't know if VAR is has toughened things up more, or is it worse than the than the past. I don't know, but I mean, all the human intervention and the lack of standards is where I think it's going wrong. It's not necessarily VAR, but people just need to apply it better in the Premier League.
Yeah, so I keep going back to it's really hilarious for me to see the the commentary from the referee association, I don't know, PGMOL or whatever the hell they're called. And for me, there are two things. So it's the PGMOL statement and Dermot Gallagher. These are the two things that for me show me what the bloody mood is on refereeing and how things are going. Currently, they're in the PR phase. So if you go back a season or maybe 2 seasons ago, there was not a single, like a guy could have taken a revolver out of his pocket, shot the defender, but if the referee had not caught it, Dermot Gallagher would come on screen and say, no, no, it was a doubtful decision. I think the referee was right in what he did. They were just clearly covering their own ass. Now, it's like they've got so many things wrong that they're making statements after every game saying, hands up, we got it wrong here. And then Dermot Gallagher is coming out on live TV and saying, I think the referees got it wrong. You know what this is? This reminds me of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer coming out after a game at United and saying, I have to put my hands up here. I take full responsibility for this and all of this. The first 3 or 4 times that he did it, everybody was like, "Oh wow, okay, so refreshing that a manager is coming out and taking his like it all on himself, and he's actually calling bullshit, and all of that." But then the eighth or ninth or 10th time that he kept doing it, like, just shut up and fix it, man. Like, we don't want to hear that you got it wrong. We don't want to hear that it's something that you're taking, like you're putting your hand up and taking responsibility. That is like an expectation of the job. Just shut up and fix it now. It's getting really annoying to hear these people just say that my bad, I got it wrong. And then what? If somebody gets something wrong as a player, you might lose a contract, you might get suspended, sent to train with the reserves. If something like this happens to a team, they could get relegated. Like, what happens then after you say you got it wrong? What the hell happens after that? I think it's a bloody farce. I think they've been protected for far too long. There's this one line that people say that, oh, referees are actually the only thing that stands between the game going in, the sanctity of the game, the honesty of the game, because they are the ones who hold all the cards. And it's like almost saying that if you treat our referees badly, then there'll be like match fixing and stuff like that. Sorry, that's not an okay excuse. Get the right people in, pay them well. It's the biggest, most paid league in the world. Surely they can afford it. It's just absolute crap. I'm getting very tired of the, hey, my bad, sorry, let's move on.
Rather, you talked about this lack of accountability and what happens to them. I think the first thing that comes to mind when you said that came to my mind when you said that was uh, like a player slaps a ref, like what happened with Mitrovic, and he gets 8 9 games. I still don't know what has happened to the ref who kind of elbowed Robertson.
It's gone. No, it's been nothing has
there's
happened.
going to be no further action. It's already
So
been
it's
cleared
clearly
yesterday, I think.
clearly Robertson and this guy have chatted after the game. They've whatever like shaken hands and made up for it. And now everybody is like, okay, no more further action. It's been announced as well. So nothing's happening to that referee. Everything is absolutely fine. I mean, perhaps it was a mistake and Mitrovic was not. I don't know, but still, it's just ridiculous, man. The double standards is everywhere.
Yeah, I'm still not convinced, and I think I heard about this on one of the more established pods, where they talked about how even at lower levels of football in England, they're like, where will these good refs come from? That if you think that the Premier League refereeing levels are bad, wait till you take a look at what's happening in the Championship or the League One or League Two. So then a potential solution is get people from outside, get people from France, get people from Germany, and that's something that they've trialed in the sense that those people would come in and be there, but they still don't have a plan for those guys to officiate. So it's not going to work out unless you open those doors, right?
Yeah, but if you look at the refereeing standards in the Champions League and the Europa League as well, they are not. They're not any better.
No,
Uh,
I would
they,
disagree with that. I would say that the Champions League VAR
I mean,
and Champions
there
League
have been
refereeing is better than Premier League for sure.
there have been a lot of games, at least in one league United, like the game against Sevilla, Bruno Fernandes got a yellow card for no reason at all, and there have been the game I think against Barcelona as well. Some yellow cards were handed out, and the
There was a
Barcelona
game
players
against
did not
Real
get yellow
Sociedad
cards.
where like Martinez got a red like Martinez considered a penalty for what was not even a handball. It's some of the refereeing is atrocious in Europe.
Yeah, so again, it really depends on the referee in that particular game. Uh, uh, I agree with you, Swag. Like I think that there is merit in potentially looking at referees from outside Europe. I follow the Bundesliga, and I think VAR is used to really good effect, at least in the Bundesliga. So maybe I don't know the refereeing standards are higher in Germany, so maybe look at that. What we just need is a referee like Colina, man. Like I mean, what a ref that was. No
Yeah,
VAR needed. He
on
was,
on
I'm
on
like, he
on
was just
that,
amazing.
just before we move on, just on Colina, apparently he used to get shit in Italy all the time as well. So it's probably just
Yeah,
our bias that okay, we follow the Premier League, so our referees are shit. But Colina is, oh, he was
yeah.
this god and who Ronaldo gave his jersey to, and in Italy he used to get shit on a weekly basis. So probably it's grass is greener on the other side. But yeah, definitely some.
No social media back
Yeah,
then, right? So
yeah,
you could get away with it.
yeah, and the way he looked, he was just scary looking. But yeah, anyway, let's move on. And if you remember, we talked about having some chat GPT influence things on this episode because that's quite the theme right now. So what I did was I asked this AI, which is not ChatGPT, it's a different one because ChatGPT, if you're aware, only knows information till 2021, so doesn't know what's happening in the world right now. So I got a different AI and I asked him to give me 10 quiz questions for the current European football season. And interestingly, he was I'll So trust me, the answers are given by the AI and not me, so we'll correct them when we get to the wrong ones. But here is question number one. These are so silly, but I think let's just do them for the lols. Who won the Premier League in the 2021-22 season?
Wow,
What?
really?
I think
Did
we're ready to reject technology.
Yeah, AI is going to get banned soon, I think, with the look of it. Anyway, Man City, of course. Then, which team has won the most Premier League titles to date? And I was like, dude, I can probably write better questions while asleep. Who is the current
I
manager of
think you'll need to I think you'll need to give them more information, like write a challenging quiz or write
yeah,
a hard quiz or something. Maybe write a quiz is just like
write
basic.
write write a quiz for a 30-year-old, not a 5-year-old. Maybe
But
that's what it could be.
on that note, you remember we talked about this, and then Ashwin and I both tried talking to the AIs and asking them about football. And I think for Kane, he asked him a question about Kane, and the content that the AI put out for Kane, knowing the information from 2021, was exactly the situation that Kane is in even today. So Kane is probably feeling that his life hasn't changed in 2 years, because it was like it'll be key to see if he moves in the summer. Maybe he goes to Manchester United, maybe he goes abroad to a different club, but he needs to move if he wants to win trophies. And it's the same situation even now.
You mean Tottenham Hotspur have not become a successful club in 1 year's time? Wow, that's a real shocker.
Yeah, imagine. And that is despite or because of Antonio Conte. Anyway, so on that disappointing AI quiz, sorry listeners, let's move on to talking a bit more about United. We mentioned the injuries that the players had. So Martinez went off injured, and Ashwin's already got his head in his hands. Varane went away injured, and we don't even know his prognosis yet, right? Martinez is out for the season, but Varane, we still don't know what's happening with him.
Yeah, Varane could be back before the end of the season, but
Okay.
knowing Varane, never know.
And there are other people who are injured as well. Casemiro is, I think, still out for one more game. Or
Casemiro and Eriksen are back,
okay,
but it's Luke Shaw, Marcus Rashford, and Garnacho. These are the main players who are still out. I'm not
yeah.
talking of Van der Beek.
But Scott McTominay also has a knock, I think. So he's also out.
So how do you see this playing out in terms of the Europa League as well as the top four run-in? And I would like to you guys to try and be a bit neutral and not be your typical jinxing stuff here. So definitely center back is going to be a pain point because Harry Maguire is going to be in the lineup, and he's been giving some David Brent sort of messages saying that I have the best record of his in history of England centre backs, and I am a leader, and whenever I play there is my influence on the game and stuff like that. But yeah, I can take your point about the centre backs, but I think it's good that you still have some sort of buffer over Tottenham in the fight for top four.
Yeah, so let's look at how serious, which injuries are, right? So, Rashford, Shaw, and then you have McTominay. I think the three of them are supposed to be back soon. Ten Hag was commenting that probably Rashford could be back for the Sevilla away game as well, but there's no surety about that as of now. Even Shaw is expected to be back soon. Same for McTominay. So these three injuries may not hurt us much in the duration, in the remaining duration of the season. Garnacho, there is still nothing on how like how much longer he will take. Sancho has come in for him, but there is a marked difference in the level that they are both at. So that is still a big miss, I would say, for us. What is really going to hurt us is the two centre backs. Lisandro is definitely out for the season. I'm just hoping that he's back for pre-season and is not delayed, and then he needs to catch up and all that. That can also hurt, people who are on the top of their game. But Varane and Martinez being out is a big, big blow because Martinez, especially, he is one of the best players that are probably there in the Premier League in playing in a high press. He steps out and jokes a lot of attacks at the source itself, and then Varane is the one who is covering up behind him. I think that chemistry is really going to be missing. Secondly, Martinez is also very good at playing out from the back. A lot of how we even covered up or managed to cover up for Casemiro Ericsson's absence was because of Martinez and how he used to pass out. Without the two of them in combo, it's going to be back to the Lindelof Maguire days, which was the default combination under Solskjaer, and we know what all flaws they bring with them. They don't have pace to deal with runs in behind. They are they might be Maguire might be okay at handling aerial balls, but people like one-on-ones, both of them are poor. Passing out from the back, also, Maguire and Lindelof nowhere near the same level of Martinez. So what we might actually see is that Shaw comes back. If he comes back early, he might have to play centre back, and then that would mitigate some of the problems that we have in build up. But it's all open how we are going to deal with that situation, especially with De Gea. In terms of distribution, it's going to be back to square one for us.
Yeah, I think Arke covered it really well. One thing I think we have been missing, even without those injuries, is control, especially in the Sevilla game. I think it was such a frantic game, and it was like United losing the ball quite a bit in the middle of the field, and especially if you don't have the likes of Varane and Martinez in defense, that that midfield will always uh, have to keep an eye in the back, right? And as Ake mentioned, Maguire and Lindelof, sorry, they're not the defenders who can play a high line, and that's something that Ten Hag that that's something that Ten Hag has instilled. And there is a reason that Maguire does not play, and there's a reason that Lindelof does not play. Uh, I don't even know if we can if Phil Jones is available. He seems to be someone who's there but not there. I think he is probably the closest that we have to you know to a defender of Martinez's ilk. But yeah, it's something that I'm definitely worried about. I think from the other injury standpoint, Rashford is obviously someone who's got like 33, 35% goals. So not having him obviously is a big miss. Let's see if he comes back into the Serie A game because we definitely need his goals there. The fact that we conceded 2 goals and lost the lead that we had, we definitely need him, especially without Bruno Fernandes, who is going to miss the next game as well.
And you can't talk, not talk about injuries without talking of Martial. He's still, I think, feeling his way in. He was taken off as a precaution on 60 minutes because it was his first start in many months. So, with Martial, it's almost like you're carrying one injured player, and we can just hope that he turns the corner fitness wise, but even that is up in the air as of now.
Yeah, I think the biggest beneficiary of this injury run is Newcastle because just before their current run where they've reconsolidated a bit after the Carabao Cup final, they seem to be in a bit of bother, but I think this will give them a decent leeway to consolidate their position and definitely finish in the top four.
Yeah, talk about momentum at the right time. Newcastle, I think the three really form teams right now in the Premier League are probably Newcastle. Then you have Aston Villa as well. I think they have won 6 of the last 7 games, and then you have Man City, obviously. Newcastle, I think, are at the moment with the kind of the number of games that they have left to play with them playing, almost once a week. They are favorites to grab that third place and the momentum that they have. This is the kind of momentum that you want going into the end of the season, into the home straight. So, uh, like Tottenham Hotspurs, everyone says that they are having a bad season and all that, but still they are only 3 points off the pace, and it's really irritating that someone who is having a bad season is so close to United. So, a lot of gray areas for United at the moment.
And of course, they've been handed out wins by bar officials as well, right? So that obviously helps. But I think from a top four perspective, I I, I I feel that we should definitely get the fourth spot. It will be a calamity if we don't, despite the injuries that we have. As RK mentioned, some of the attacking players at least are coming back. So that's a good thing. What we need is control. Like that, the game against Sevilla was exactly the kind of things that we have been doing wrong. We could have easily won that game 3-0, 4-0, and that is something that you notice even in Premier League games. We go up we go 1 goal up, and then we are hanging till the very end. And then we sometimes score the second goal. Sometimes it's like a nervy 1-0 win. I think we need to just have a bit of control, and I think the midfielders will really help us in doing that.
Yeah, it was such a bittersweet game in terms of the first half an hour was actually brilliant to see. Okay, the control wasn't the best, and but that deteriorated after the first half an hour. I think first half an hour was really scintillating in terms of how people were rotating positions, and you could see a lot of things that Ten Hag wanted to do or wants to do with this team and the similarities to his previous Ajax sides. There were center midfielders who were dropping wide in fullback positions. There were fullbacks who were coming into center midfield. They were underlapping, overlapping. I mean, there were all kinds of positional rotations without compromising on space in that first 30 minutes. And the best part was how he's kind of adjusted to not having Casemiro, Eriksson with Bruno playing deep, pushing Sabitzer up, and Sabitzer was complementing Martial perfectly with Martial dropping deep, linking up, and Sabitzer was making you know all those runs beyond the last line, and he scored two goals which were very well deserved. So to start from that plank of dominance in the first 30 minutes. That's why I was arguing on the group last Sunday as well that people were talking about 2-0 Arsenal being dead and buried. I mean, I had never thought about a game being dead and buried at 2-0. United were as dominant, I think, against Sevilla as Arsenal were against Liverpool, if not more. And you see how these things turn on a few moments. That one moment being Varane, hobbling off injured for 1 minute, and then Bruno getting a yellow card, on the edge of the box for what was not even a handball. So, Swag, your comment about European refereeing, that's another moment, of really atrocious refereeing. I don't know whether, where some of that logic comes from. So, with all the injuries which came after, it's, I mean, it's kind of on the edge for United. It's very important that now we take points from Nottingham Forest, which is a very tough away game, and Sevilla are, have become kind of like a bogey team for United. And for me personally, that whole heritage comment from Jose, which was, proper covering up his own ass, it's something that has really stuck with me since. I don't think United, with all their injuries and all the other excuses, have any excuses if we can't put it beyond Sevilla. As a team which is on the brink of the relegation zone in La Liga, whatever happens, we need to put one across the team. You can't question any heritage, any Sevilla record in Europa League for that.
Yeah, and the one thing about that Sevilla game is that they made six changes to the first team because they have this relegation six-pointer game against Valencia, if you believe it. Uh, so it I don't I think Sevilla had also given up hope before the game. Like just looking at that team, you could feel that okay, this is they are there for the taking, right? And the fact that Sevilla of all the teams came back and got that draw at Old Trafford, the stadium where we have been winning so many games, it's just appalling. I think, like RK, you said, the first 30-40 minutes, we were completely dominating. There were so many spaces that we were exploiting. It's not just, I think Sabitzer did really well. He was kind of playing the Donny van der Beek role at Ajax. I think he did that to very good effect. Of course, he scored the goals. That's the cherry on top. The center midfield were also kind of exploiting the half spaces. I think they did that to really good effect. In some ways, Sevilla allowed that to happen. I think what happened in the second half, or like after the 30th minute at least, United pretty much self-imploded. Like they lost all the control, and then they eventually brought on Ericsson with the aim of someone, bringing that control back. But by by that point, I think like enough damage was done. We conceded the first own goal, and then Maguire headed in the second goal as well. We had chances to go 3-0, 4-0 final up as well. I think the Malacia miss was absolutely horrendous. I understand he's a fullback, but I feel that we had a lot of chances. Anthony also hit the post, so it was just not a good day for us. I still feel that the next leg we'll go and probably get the job done, but I don't think we need to be in this position at all.
Yeah, I think I blame Mark Goldbridge for this. I saw a clip online where he's talking in the 84th minute that we could keep playing till the end of the season and Sevilla won't score. And quite literally, like 15
So
seconds later.
how I tried blocking that guy so many times, but he comes up on my TikTok feed. I don't know from where.
Yeah, I
Like
got him
Mark
from this.
Goldbridge and Speed are like
I
so.
thankfully I've gotten rid of speed, but Goldbridge still keeps coming up in this out of context football Twitter account, etc., etc. But it was like poetic timing, like 15 seconds before the goal. He's like, no, no, we can play till the end of the season, and Sevilla won't score.
Maybe he can answer your AI quiz, Swag, with the amount of knowledge that he has.
Yeah. Anyway, I think moving on to the other Manchester team, Pep not overthinking this time round and smashing Bayern. The game was not as lopsided as the scoreline suggests, but Pep getting the result that he needed, and Mane getting so pissed that he broke Sane's face after the game and has been suspended now. But City looking good for a semi-final against Real Madrid. Galacticos of old versus Galacticos of new.
Yeah, I think. See, one thing I would say about this game though is that 3-0 is probably a flattering scoreline. I think Bayern did a reasonably good job. Maybe like a 1-0 loss or a 2-0 loss or 2-1 loss or something of that sort is probably a more fitting scoreline. And I think one thing that Tuchel has done or not done is he's not tried to change the way the Bayern team plays, right? Because this Bayern team has been very good or very comfortable playing on the counter, and that's what and it has like all those flair players. The fact that they did not have a leader on the pitch really impacted them. There was no Müller. I think they also missed Choupo-Moting as well. So as much as credit I want to give to City and Pep, I think the fact that Bayern were missing those players also played a bearing on the final scoreline. Um, and ahead of the game, when I looked at the when I looked at the team sheet and I saw those two central midfielders, and one of those central midfielders was John Stone, I was like, okay, Pep is again overthinking this. Uh, it actually worked to his advantage because they could control the game very well, especially in the absence of Muller. So fair play, Pep. I think it's a great result to take to the Alliance.
Yeah, and we still have Cruz and Modric running the show for Madrid, which will probably still be the case 20 years from now, the way it looks like. I mean, we've been talking about their demise for 5 years now, and it doesn't seem like that they're ever going to go away. So yeah, Madrid versus City would be a interesting battle. Stones versus Modric to in the
With Modric.
yeah
Yeah, but the way Madrid were playing against Chelsea, it was like literally man versus boys at times.
yeah
So I think the Asensio goal, especially the way they were passing around in the box, it felt like a warm-up game. Uh,
yeah.
so yeah,
We had a
I would
chance at the
love.
end, though Mount had this chance at the end, which if he had scored, it would have been a much more palatable and possible scenario getting going into the second leg. But I think the scoreline easily reflects what happened in the game. It would have been extremely lucky for us to have gotten a goal out of the game.
Yeah, definitely. And you know what? I hate the fact that we don't have away goals rules anymore. I think it added a really good dimension. Like get that away goal and then go back to your home and get a draw or something like that. I really miss away goals sometimes.
Right. Anyway, moving on. Finally, we have the weekend fixtures coming up, and I think we don't have many standout fixtures apart from maybe Chelsea Brighton, where we remember what happened in the return leg where Potter was being booed by the Brighton fans. He's not there anymore. Let's see what they do this time round. But I think I'll go for Leeds versus Liverpool. We remember what happened in the return leg of this one as well. Crazy game, 4-3, I think, at the end, and the table tennis match going on in on a football pitch, to and fro. But yeah, I think Leeds slightly more tricky situation as compared to Liverpool. But it'll be fun to have an
Yeah,
encounter there.
yeah. I think for me it will be the battle of the two cities. So Man City versus Leicester City. I think especially with Dean Smith at the helm. I always feel that Leicester City is one team that has given Man City, you know, so I think I'll go for that as my game.
Yeah, but let's see. I'm not too sure that Leicester have anything left in the tank to provide. But so on that note, I think we've come to the end of the episode, and we shall reconvene next week with the analysis of what's happened this week. And see you soon. In the meantime, enjoy the weekend's games. Bye bye.
Ciao.